So people love talking about, bad beats or when they run bad. It usually refers to when they're all in with cards to come and they're talking about how bad the runouts were. The other guy hit his card. There are so many forms of run bad or so many types of bad beat that have nothing to do with the cards. And I have two that cost me a lot of money and they have nothing to do with the runouts. One was in Aria years ago. I think it was 2016. In my first hour of play, hit 5 sets. 4 of them held up, and after all 5 hands played out, I was down a buy-in. I won the first 4, and on the 5th one, I got all in and lost to a 1-outer, and I was down $300 after 1 hour of play. The thing is, if I lost to that 1-outer on the first set, I also would have been down $300. And then if I hit 4 more sets after that, I would have made a lot of money back, coming back from that negative $300 number I was sitting on. But when I won the first 4 and went from whatever, $300 on my first hand to, I don't know, $450, $550 after I won with 4 sets, and then lose it all in one hand, I'm down to 0. So the order of those 5 sets, the 4 wins and the 1 loss, that was the bad beat, that they happened in that order. That's the only order they could have happened where I'm down 300 when all 5 are done. The other is a much better one. This was in the Horseshoe, Baltimore. It was at the end of 2020, probably October, November. There was a hand where I raised under the gun. I had 8s. The guy to my left calls. The guy to his left calls. Another guy calls. I mean, this is, what goes on in Maryland. Another guy calls out of the small blind. And either the big blind or the straddler. The guy sitting to my right re-raises. It was an incredibly small re-raise. I wasn't worried about the amount. I was concerned about what he had. He was playing a lot of hands, but he wasn't putting in a lot of re-raises pre-flop. So I thought he had a pretty strong hand. But, no one's folding. My mistake, which I realized right when it happened, I should have thought about it, even though there was no point to re-raise him, because my 8s are way behind. But I should have made it look like, I had kings or queens and didn't call right away. I did call right away. So the guy to my left calls, the guy to his left calls, the other guy calls. It gets back to the small blind who understands, it's the re-raiser and me are the 2 guys that could have the strongest hands. I raised first to go, and this guy 3-bet. The other people in the middle probably have nothing. I didn't even consider a 4-bet. So how strong could I possibly be? This is why I should have thought about it before I put in the chips for that call. Now, what he's about to do is still very stupid because he's not good at hand reading and he doesn't understand how strong the 3-better's hand is, even though the amount wasn't very big. This guy puts in a raise to like 200. I think I made it like 20 and the 3-better made it 50, and this guy makes it like 200. He can't possibly have that strong of a hand. This makes no sense that the first time around he didn't want to put this raise in, but now he wants to put this back 4-bet in out of position against like 5 or 6 other people. This makes no sense. But it gets to the guy who 3-bet, and that guy goes all in. And now there's nothing I could do. I fold my 8s. Everyone else in the hand folds. The bad beat here was that this guy decided to put this crazy move in. It was actually pretty smart, except for the fact that he should know the 3-better has a very strong hand. If not for that, it's a great read on the fact that I can't be that strong, and great execution to actually follow through on that information and put this raise in, because there was a lot of dead money out there. Like 4 of us put in $50 who ended up folding before the flop. But it was the run out that makes that guy's decision to put the back 4-bet in such a bad beat for me. I would have flopped top set. The guy on my left would have flopped middle set. The guy to his left would have flopped 2 overs and a gut shot to the nut straight. the guy who put that crazy back 4-bet in pre-flop would have flopped a gut shot to a straight flush, and the 3-better had pocket kings. He was never folding on an 8-high board. So I think if that guy doesn't put that crazy back 4-bet in pre-flop, and all of us get to the flop, all of us get all in on the flop. Now, I'm very far from having this hand locked up against all these other hands, but we saw the turn and the river because these guys were all in, and my top set on the flop would have held. I would have dodged the quads, the better sets, the flushes, the straight flushes. I would have dodged everything. So I lost $50 that hand, and I think if we get to the flop, I would have won like a $1,700 pot on that 5 or 6-way all-in, whatever it was. So that guy making that crazy back 4-bet decision pre-flop with that run out ended up costing me like $1,700. So those were two forms of bad beat that have very little to do with the cards, very little to do with the runouts. It was just some things that people don't consider contribute to run good or run bad or bad beats that were like really bad. I mean, together those two hands, those two events, the first one was a series of hands, cost me about $2,000.